Hey everybody, here we have my BMW E46 M3. About 6 months ago, I emailed my regional NASA office, the National Autosports Association, not the people who are launching rockets into outer space. I'm nowhere near that cool. I emailed them about potentially participating in some track events because I'd never gotten a chance to do so. They emailed me back their 2019 schedule with some recommendations on what to do. So I went out and I got my car tech inspected. Tech inspector told me what I already knew. My brakes were wearing out and that they'd make it through the event, but they were definitely something that I should replace relatively soon. So I went into the first event, which was about 3 months ago, and I went in there completely bone stock. No modifications to the car at all, everything just how I bought it. And day one, everything went great, brakes were fine, a lot of fun. Day two, I was noticing at the very first session that my brakes were not doing nearly as well, so I chose a much sooner braking zone and kind of just got through the event. And I had a lot of fun, but, had to play it a lot more cautiously because I didn't want to crash the car. Didn't have any track insurance on it. Probably never will because it's super expensive. So going into the second event, which was about a month ago, I decided I was going to replace both my brake fluid and my brake pads. Now, when I went to go replace my brake pads, this is what I found. Gouged by the rotor, completely missing the material there, very thin. Now, I knew this was basically what it looked like, but this is very bad. Now, I did not drive on these after the track event, but this is completely unsafe. Do not let your brake pads get that bad. Regardless, I replaced the brake pads with these. They're Huck DTC60, and then going into the second event, the car ran completely different than the first event. It was braking a lot sooner, I had a lot more control in braking, and I was able to brake a lot later than I had in the event before, even before my brake pads started to fade on me and wear out as bad as they did. Now, there is about 6 configurations the track that I run on can be in, and it was in a different configuration than the first event that I was in, so I was still doing a lot of learning on where my braking zones were, but it was just completely different. New car altogether. That being said, I had a lot of fun on the first 2 events, so I'm going to make some modifications to the car on this event, so let's get into it. So the next event here is going to be on Saturday. Currently it's Sunday, so that means that I have a total of 6 days to get this car ready for the event. Shouldn't take me that long, but inside this box is the #1 thing people have been recommending to me, saying that I need to do to this car if I want to run it on a track. So let's get this thing open. Okay, so as always, you get your little pack of gummy bears from Bimmerworld, because that's what they like to send you. And this is it. So here we have braided steel brake lines. So these are going to replace the rubber ones so that I'm not getting any expansion issues on it when my brakes are running very hot. And of course, more gummy bears because that's Bimmerworld for you. Stickers, and another set because I've got 4 brake lines, not just 2. So I'm going to start popping this thing up, get the wheels off, and we're going to put them on. Now that I got all the tires off the car to get to the brakes, finally take a look at all 4 of them for the first time off the car. As you can see here, they're actually getting quite a bit torn up by the track. This is the driver's side one, this is the passenger side. This one's having a lot of the rubber getting eaten away here in the grooves. Same's going with the back tires. Once again, passenger side's a little bit worse than the driver's side. Don't know why that is. Could potentially just be the way the track's designed. Something worth considering replacing here in the future, but it's not what we're focusing on today. Today, we're going to be focusing on these guys right here. And unlike the tires, these lines, they look completely fine. I don't see any cracking on any of them, but we're not replacing them because they're cracking. We're going to be replacing them just because they're rubber. And when you're racing, your brakes get hot, your fluid gets hot, the rubber expands. Should be pretty simple to do though. You got an 11mm nut right there, and it's kind of harder to see on the back, but right about there you've got, I think it's a 14mm. I have the wrench already pulled out, I just can't remember what it is. Same with the fronts though. You're gonna have 11mm, pretty easy to get to, and then the 14mm is gonna be even easier to get to on this one if it ever focuses. It's kind of hard to get focus in there without putting the camera in there first. But should be pretty simple. All 4 of them shouldn't take me too long. 2 nuts on each one of them, 4 wheels, should be easy. So I got all the old lines off, I've got all the new lines on. I don't have anyone here to help me today to bleed the brakes, but I do have this handy little power bleeder. So I'll be using this today, and then of course I'll be putting the Motel 600 in there. I'm only going to put 1 bottle in here because I shouldn't need more than that. But if I need more than that, I do have a second one just in case. I'd rather have more and not need it than not have enough. So we're just going to pop open the hood. And I have to be careful with my hood because I have this overhanging thing right here and my hood will hit it. But just keep it a little bit lower. And we'll take this guy. We'll see if I can hook this up with just one hand. And hopefully my camera will focus. Focus, camera, focus. There we go. Doing this one-handed holding a camera with gloves on isn't horrible, but I won't say it's easy. So we got that guy on there. Another reason we're only using one bottle of the Motel 600 is because I have Motel 600 in there, and I put it in there when I replaced the brake pads, so I shouldn't need to flush it. It's less than a month old, so I'm just replacing the oil or the brake fluid that came out of the brakes. So I'm gonna get this bottle filled up and then we'll get started. Now typically you'd pump one of these up to about 15 psi. I'm going to pump mine up a little bit higher because I know that this one does not hold air nearly as well as it should. If it doesn't end up working, I do have a second one up in the box I bought just in case I needed it, but hopefully I won't need it today. So I'm going to get this one to maybe just under 20, about 20 psi, and then we'll be good. I also know the idea is that you don't want the power bleeder to bleed air into the system, so I'm going to keep it tilted towards the tube a little bit, but not too much. Okay, so the rotation on this car is going to be right rear, right front, left front. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I took the power bleeder off and I filled it up with what was left in the power bleeder plus what was already in there. And it's just above the min line, a little bit above it. I'll top it off with some more here in a minute, but I'm just gonna test now to make sure that my brakes work. Because if they don't work, then it's not time to top it off. So I originally intended to cut this part of the video out because I had refilmed it, but I figured I'd keep it in just to explain what I did wrong. If you watch it back, you'll see that I pressed the brakes without capping the reservoir. As you can see, I did cap the reservoir here, but I unfortunately let a lot of air back into the system, which caused the brakes to be very spongy. That did force me to re-bleed the system, but I did go through, I re-bled all the brakes, and then I did this whole step all over again. The brakes are no longer spongy and they're very firm. So from here, I just proceeded after I did the re-bleeding to put the wheels back on the car. Last step, torque everything down to 100 foot-pounds.